Good morning, everybody. I've realized that the key to internet success is to hold some random object while you're doing your video. So this is my random object for the day. I think this was hurricane supplies a couple of years ago. So it doesn't actually get drunk in the house. Anyway, hi. You can see it's casual day. It's casual Wednesday as we go into the long weekend. Um, so let's get into talk a little more about fundraising and how we can benefit an arts organization with it. So last time we talked about some fundamentals of fundraising. It is the solicitation of contributed income. So whether you are seeking investment capital for a Broadway musical or donations and grants for your nonprofit theater company, it's a rare and valuable skill to go out and make money rain from the public and private sector. It is a standard operating procedure for a arts organization. It is necessary to diversify your revenue and provide and prove the mission of the company. So we also talked about the 10 principles of fundraising, which is kind of the Bible, I guess, and the difference between development and advancement. Development is developing relationships, especially finding out what donors want from the company. You know, what do they want? Do they want visibility? Do they want tax shelters? Do they want networking opportunities? And then providing that. And then advancement is enhancing the donor understanding of what the company does. Now, of course, the goal there is further support, but educating them about how the company works. We talked about fundraising plan elements. The three that should be in everything. Every plan is a needs statement or a case for support, and a tactics list, and a gift range chart. There's a science to doing fundraising well, to figuring out who you can ask for how much money and what you can project as a reasonable goal. The gift charts indicate the likelihood and the need of donations at certain amounts. So good stuff. The milestone, I'm bumping the due date on that back to Monday because apparently we can't assign anything that is due on a holiday. So there you have it. All right, so today we're going to talk about types of giving and types of givers. So let's jump right into that. So today we'll talk about types of giving and types of givers. The types of giving are different types of fundraising initiatives that the organization can undertake. There's a So there's an annual fund campaign, endowments, planned giving, major giving, fundraisers, the capital campaign, and then grants, which we'll be talking in detail about. So types of givers, there are two types of givers. There are public givers and private givers. Public givers are governmental organizations, so they are established through some sort of government legislation. They have very rigid guidelines on how the resources are provided and allocated. Typically, they have larger grant amounts available, and they also have people on staff whose job it is to help people fill out applications and get this money. The money has to be distributed from a public organization. It's part of their budget, and that's part of their public mandate. But private giving is basically everyone and everything else. That's going to be individuals, corporations, foundations, that sort of thing. Oftentimes, the decision of whether or not those funds go out is very discretionary. It's based on, do you have a good relationship with the person who is giving the money? It's all about developing those relationships. It's not quite as formal. Typically, those amounts are smaller. But as we'll see, they can be extremely large depending on that. Looking at this graph of where does revenue come from that we have looked at periodically throughout this course, looking at the breakdown between public and private sources, we got about 15% of the average budget is coming from public sources. whereas 85% of that contributed income is from private. So you can see that there's a lot of work that the organization needs to do in order to solicit those private donations. This number is really, think of it as basically this 48 or 49% of the chart here. So it does not include income from the endowments. So let's talk about some of the fundraising initiatives that we can undertake. First one we'll talk about is the annual fund, and this is probably the one that everybody is most familiar with. Most nonprofits in general have some sort of annual fund. It's the simplest form of giving. Happens once a year, and every year it's the most common entry point for donors, and it's a good place to start off that relationship. You can recognize a donor for their contributions. Once you collect their information, you're able to upsell them to renewals. You want to just make sure that they keep giving every year. Get in the habit of it. We talked last time about how personal appeals usually result in more donations. Typically with the annual funds, these are done through form letters. These are kind of the lowest barrier to entry. They can also have a line item on a subscription renewal. Please donate X amount to the annual fund. Although that might cannibalize some of your donations. It might reduce giving levels if you include it with a ticket sales. When is the annual fund? Well, basically, whenever it makes sense. Historically, organizations will be keeping track of when people are donating the most. The end of the year is great for tax reasons. Although with the recent tax law changes, it's not quite so pressing because the minimums are much higher. So end of the year, holidays, there might be, according to historical data that the organization keeps. Also might be a specific production, maybe the Christmas show or the July show, the last show of the season. Make a live appeal after a performance. That's a good time to donate to generate donations. But again, make sure if you do live donations, or if you do that live, you're missing out on the ability to collect people's contact information and then upsell them and renew them later. So. Next kind of fundraising vehicle is the Endowment Fund. And the Endowment Fund really ensures a sustained future for the organization. It's an investment account. So the principal will stay invested while interest that is generated funds the activity. The organization just uses the dividends and the interest, and usually without withdrawing the principal. And with an endowment fund campaign, the donations go into specifically into this account. Now, that interest, though, that's being generated, here's a callback to our financial section. So what kind of income would that interest be? Let the timer tick. So that would be non-operating income. That is interest income, is non-operating. It's not related to the operations of the business. And so remember restricted and unrestricted funds? These are definitely restricted. So let's see here. A couple of special types of endowment funds, and these are interesting. The term endowment is one where the principal can be withdrawn after some period of time. So the person who has made this restricted donation has said it stays in the fund for 10 years, and then you can use it for whatever you want to. A quasi-endowment is typically where if you have retained earnings, if an organization has been profitable over the year, the retained earnings are placed into an investment account. That's sort of an endowment, and the idea is that you live off of that interest, or you just use the interest in that endowment fund, although there are no specific rules that say you have to keep the principal in there. How much do you need? How much can you make? Well, assuming that you make about 6% interest on some amount, here's a couple of scenarios here. Typically, you want to invest an endowment fund into a very safe vehicle. So you wouldn't want to drop it into, a stock portfolio. The compound so you want to hope optimally you want to make compound interest. And if you're familiar with this from your finance class, it says you're credited with interest each period, not just at the end of the year. So a 6% compounded annually would give you $600 at the end of the year if you invested 10,000. You get a little bit more if you compound it monthly, and you get even more if you compound it daily. And this kind of stacks up as your endowment fund gets bigger. With larger principal, you can. And you can see that for 61,000, if you got $1 million endowment. You could probably do a lot with that $61,000 worth of interest and dividends. So these could be a substantial generator of money and planned revenue for an organization. So the next kind of donation fundraising that one can do is solicitation of planned gifts. And a planned gift is money that's just going to be given to the organization at some future time, hence the word planned. The simplest form of a planned gift is just naming the institution as the beneficiary in a will or a trust or an individual retirement account. There's some accounting rules for how you need to account for that. I mean, typically that is there's accounting rules about that. So the deferred gift is we're gonna transfer it over to the organization, but they can't actually use it until some specific period in time. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, first off, there's tax benefits for the donor, and second off, there's a really great example in the book about this on page 175 with this gentleman Richard Stover, the college professor. So he transfers these assets to the college as a deferred gift into a term endowment, term endowment from the previous slide. And that is used as loan collateral for a new building. So it's not touched. It's definitely a deferred gift. But they can use that as collateral for a loan, and then the endowment, the interest off of that loan is used to pay off. Excuse me, the interest off of the gift in the endowment fund is used to pay off the loan, and then eventually, once the loan is paid off, then if the heirs are still, his two sons are still alive, they split the interest 50-50 until the heirs pass away, and then the university can do whatever they do. So now this is a very long-term gift, right? I mean, so this is a planned gift that the university might get 30 years from the time that it's given. But in the meanwhile, they both get to make use of this money while it's kind of sitting there. Plus, the guy doesn't have to worry about taking care of an art collection. So anyway, so yes, very good example in the book, but that's planned gifts. So the fundraising efforts that we've talked about so far we haven't talked about really the people who are involved with them, your advancement and your development office. And it's where we talk about major giving, which is why you have these departments in an organization. A major gift is a large donation that is acquired after a long period of developing a relationship with the donor. So this is a person who is very much involved in the inner workings of the organization. Major, the size of the gift, it really depends on the organization. Depending if you're a very small theater company, a major gift might be $100,000, whereas for something like the Kennedy Center, it might be upwards of 20 million. Long period could be 5 to 20 years or longer. So we're definitely developing relationships with donors. let's explode another sort of myth or opinion about the development and advancement staffs. As we talked about before, the development staff listens to potential donors' needs and desires and finds ways for the organization to satisfy them. And advancement is enriching those donors, those potential donors' knowledge of how the organization works. And why? Why do these folks exist? And I guess it's really the same reason that we have volunteers at a theater, that people volunteer to work at a theater company, because theater is impactful. It conveys great meaning, especially to people who truly care about each other's and who want to make a difference in the world. And each person is different. Each person has different reasons for wanting to participate in an organization. So having these staff members whose job it is to get to know these people is just part of the business. And it's that sense of stewardship, that drives volunteerism. So just like we need people to coordinate volunteers so the association is mutually beneficial, development and advancement staff coordinate people who also happen to have a lot of resources. And satisfied donors, they make these contributions because they're treated with care and concern, and because whatever their needs are for altruism, for recognition, they're being recognized and they're being met. So development and advancement officers, they understand that, and they do it, and they hope that a gift will follow. Now, I personally think that there are just people in the world who have a sixth sense about this, about who is willing to donate. There's probably also some actuarial data on it that could inform the decision. But this is just where they shine. This is a natural aptitude that these folks have. So, and very important to have them on your organization. Next kind of fundraising effort is called a capital campaign, and this is different from the other kinds of campaigns that we've talked about so far, because it's an all or nothing sort of fundraising effort. You're paying for a capital asset, so something that is going to be around for a long time. So it's either a totally new building, or renovations to a building, or new equipment for that building, or new equipment for the theater. The money cannot be used unless the full goal is met, because the initial amount that's been determined is what you need to actually build the thing. But now the actual construction cost is only one factor of it. You also have to factor in cost changes over the course of the project, any unplanned costs, construction delays, additional marketing needed, extensions of the time, and that factors into this overall number. And you also have to look at, so once you have this number, you have to figure out, well, how can we reasonably expect to pay this over a period of time, because you're not going to get it all at once. So that really involves understanding how your donations and your donors tend to work. The board of directors has to be on board with this. They definitely have to approve a capital campaign, and so the amount of money that we need to raise and the amount of time it's going to take needs to be kind of set in stone at the very beginning of the project. Typically, they're divided into, the construction can be divided into phases or benchmarks. One of the most important phases is the silent phase at the beginning, where the board of directors and the staff are really looking for those major donors to kind of kick the campaign off. That'll really determine whether or not the goal is achievable, because once the silent phase ends, hopefully you have a lot of committed funds and you can kick off the more public phase with a bang. People are, again, less hesitant to donate if it looks like the goal is going to be reachable and the campaign's going to be successful. It's challenging with a capital campaign and running that at the same time that you're running an annual campaign, because you don't want to siphon donations off of the annual appeal. That could conceivably jeopardize your operating funds, depending on how you are allocated. So, so there are some real challenges to running these two campaigns at the same time. So another kind of a fundraiser, a way to raise funds, is a fundraiser. Haha. or really it's special event fundraisers. And this was kind of maybe a little bit of a trick question in the budget analysis project that I threw in there to see if you wanted to do a fundraising event. But fundraisers are where the organization charges a price above and beyond the cost of putting on the gathering in order to raise funds for the organization. There are lots of options for fundraising events. You can have just a party or a gala or gala. Is it gala or gala? I'm going to say gala. Races, silent auctions, award dinners, lectures, and charitable performances. Wow, what a surprise there! That would be a good thing for theater to do. If you can do it on an annual basis, if you can have an annual event that is popular and expected, you can kind of raise your margins on these. But they're very challenging to make profitable. They take a lot of planning, months to plan and prepare it, and they require very, very detailed timelines and budgets. One of the big traps that organizations fall into is they say, "Oh, well, we'll just let volunteers staff it and run it." Well, it takes a lot of time, and your volunteers are a capital resource in a sense because they might get tired. So it might be better to have them spending their time on activities that are going to pull in more revenue for the organization. There are different types of events of these different types of events. Some are better for awareness, networking, and fun rather than actually raising money for an organization. I found an article online, and I got the link to it here. It's a very good article about three quick things that you need to know to plan a fundraising event. And I thought the most interesting graph was this one. They've divided up the different fundraising events by the type and the size of the organization. So these are small, the blue ones are small organizations, less than $5 million in revenue a year. Mid-size 6 to 50, and large is more than $50 million. But basically, the idea is if you're a small theater, if you make less than $5 million a year, and you can, the blue dots here, the most bang for the buck you're going to get is through some sort of non-sport competition or a fun run or an auction. Maybe a gala also. These are pretty decent return on investment with relatively less, with less effort to plan than say an art exhibit or a sporting event or a marathon or something like that. Concerts, I think if you're looking to do more awareness, a concert might be or a performance might be an easier thing to do because you're in the business of live entertainment. So maybe it's a little bit further up here. But so check out this article. It's let's see, I've got it right there. Yeah, they incur hefty out-of-pocket costs and tens to hundreds of planning hours. So there's that graph. This is kind of an interesting one too. This is how effective the event is at building a brand or increasing brand awareness. So this kind of ranks concerts as very good at building brand awareness. Galas as well, especially again if you can do something on an annual basis, the public, they're more likely to also bring in more revenue because people come back year after year. So that's fundraisers and special events. And here is the slide you have been waiting for, talking all about grants. Grants are formal gifts of money from a foundation or a governmental agency, and they're designated for a specific purpose. Typically, the organization has certain categories of activity that they restrict their projects to. They have guidelines for what projects meet for the projects that are going to be applying for these particular types of grants. So they have a specific purpose. And grant writing, the process of grant writing, is completing the application process. But it goes more than that. It goes further than that. It's more than just your writing skills. You should have very great attention to detail and be very personable, being able to talk with people. That's a skill in grant writing because, as we'll see, a lot of it is grant presentation as well. With the grant, unlike other fundraising types, you are accountable to some external organization, to the granting organization. You're not accountable to the public because the public is not providing the funds. There may be additional and periodic financial reporting that you will have to do as a result of this to prove that the funds have been used effectively. The most important skill is following instructions with the grants. You should have very great attention to detail and note-taking ability. And you need to be comfortable asking for help. There are, fortunately, a lot of government agencies that have people who help you fill out the application in a way that they know that the committee that is going to be reviewing the applications will approve them. As you discovered in your research, finding these granting agencies, at least the public ones, is actually pretty easy. They're largely on the web. But the applications themselves, there's a lot of variety to them, as with many things. But typically, the things that a grant application will ask you for are one of these, or several of these 9. The first one, a project summary, is just a summary of your project. Then some detail about the project, the what, where, who is involved, who is the audience, how the work contributes to your mission. Then you need a needs statement, which we're working on now quite diligently. What need does the project address? It's really, you're going to distill the pieces of your needs statement that talk about what need in the community the project is going to address. For the history and qualifications of your organization, they want to know that the funds are going to be used wisely, and your organization's past history of conducting similar projects will inform this, or your youthful enthusiasm, your excellent training at a private institution. These are kinds of things to call out. The support that you have among your faculty and your peers for a new sort of organization. Budget and financial considerations. So we've done budgets before. These are specific income and expense projections. You know the best way to format this now. They might ask for your financial statements as well if your organization has them. So if you have unearned income and contributed income, they might want to see that. Other funding. Other funding is where else are you going for funds for this particular project? They want to know how their investment fits into the overall picture of the project's budget. If you can say, we have raised X amount already in service of this mission, of this fundraising effort, that is more likely to get you the funds that you need, which is pretty cool. Measures of success. So they want to know not only how you will know if the project is successful, so what goals you are reaching for, but also how you will evaluate that success. What is the mechanism by which you're going to evaluate that? Are you going to do surveys? Are you going to look at attendance? Are you going to look at the quality of shows that you're able to bring in? What is the mechanism to tell whether or not the project is successful? Funder benefits and other requirements. So sometimes the agency will want to be mentioned in your promotional materials, on the back of a promo t-shirt or in the notes of the program. You want to be able to assure the grantor that you can do this and tell them how you would do it. And then finally, supplementary materials, which could be really anything. A list of the board members, proof of your tax exemption, that sort of thing. So any and all of these can go into a grant application. So when applying for the grant, again, I mentioned that writing the application is just one step of the process. There's a myriad of other skills that you need to show in order to successfully get a grant. So let's go through some of the steps to getting one successfully. Step 1, research the agency. You want to find out what specific projects that they have funded in the past and what are the specific things that they are interested in. And prepare just sort of in your mind that when you are filling out the application that these are the kinds of the high points that you want to highlight in your organization. Get the application. Read through it very, very thoroughly. You want to do a second check to decide if it's a fit for your needs, and also to see if the amount of money that they are providing is appropriate for you. I mean, if it's $1 million grant and all you need is money to get rights for a particular show, let's say, it might not be the one that you want to go for. So if the amount of money being provided is a fit for your needs, and if your needs are appropriate for the grant itself. Make friends with the program officer. So once you're familiar with the organization and the application process, this is where your relationship building skills kick in. You get in touch with the person who is called the program officer. The book says that you should email them. You definitely should not call them. I think that's a little draconian. I think you can call the agency. When you do call the agency, just expect to make friends. And also expect them not to answer, and be very appreciative if they do. But expect also the secretary or the assistant to the program officer is going to be your best friend in this whole process. It is not unlike getting an agent. You want to make friends with secretaries or getting cast in something. Explain what you're thinking of applying for, and you want to confirm with that person if it's a fit for their mission. And during the whole time, just be respectful, be appropriate with everybody at the agency. You are establishing your personal credibility with this agency, and by extension, your organizations. Synergize and be donor-centered. So once you've talked with the person, you want to position. This is kind of a corollary to number 3, really. You want to position your company's work as complementary to their mission. Be a person who the donor is going to be comfortable working with and entrusting with funds. Being donor-centered means trying to see what it is that they find important. If you can use their style and their language in the agency, go for it. You're actors. But be a person that this organization wants to work with, because people give to people. They don't give to causes. Write well and hit deadlines. So this is where you're filling out the application. You may, after you've made contact with the agency, they may ask for you to write a letter of inquiry somewhere to demonstrate that you know the agency, the program, and that you're appropriate for it. But the process of filling out the application, just write concisely, clearly, legibly, type it if you can. And make sure that you're hitting all the deadlines that may be set up. Number 6, prepare for an interview. So once they winnow through the applications for grants, they may have a number of them. They may have hundreds, and they may want to winnow it down to some small number if there's not a lot of funds available, and they may call you in for an interview. So you want to prepare for that presentation. It is good to have some slides that describe your organization and your history and your mission and your people. So basically all of the milestones we've been working on, hint, hint. So you might want to have those just prepared and in your hip pocket if you ever want to pull them out. You can tweak them as needed for the situation. You might not need them, but if there are multiple rounds of interviews, you will be very glad that you had them. So once you pass the interview process and they select you and you got it, you want to cash the check and go be artistic. Go forth, execute on the plan and that you have set forth in your application, and make sure that you are reporting and hitting all of your milestones for the organization. Yes, definitely stick to those reporting deadlines. As mentioned before, both public and foundation grantors, they want to know the results. Did their money do what you expected it to do, and by extension them? Are you fulfilling your mission as a responsible fiduciary? So make sure that you want to adhere to whatever rules they have set up, and that sets you up for future success within that agency. And now the question that you've all been waiting for is, what is the final going to be? Well, take a look at item number 6 here, preparing for an interview. That is what you are going to be doing for your final project. The final project is the grant presentation, where you are going to be fleshing out your imagined theater company and presenting a grant as part of the review process. There's going to be 3 parts to the grant presentation project. Number 1 is the application. So you should have the actual grant form. So you're going to apply for that grant. You're going to imagine that you are the artistic director or executive director for your theater company. You're going to fill out all the sections of the application. You can omit any real world documents that are requested, so like tax forms or the history or the or tax forms. You can omit those. For things like if they ask for like the history and the qualifications, you can use what we've worked on in class. For things like the who is involved with the organization, you can make up fictional people that occupy the positions in your organization. There's going to be a lot of variation in these applications, so if you have a question on what you can and can't omit, send me the application and ask me specific questions, and I'll give you an answer. But this portion is going to be judged based on adherence to whatever the instructions are in the form and your writing skills. You want to have complete sentences, logical construction, be as persuasive as you can, and follow the guidelines that we've outlined here on how to actually write out these applications. The second piece of this is the PowerPoint presentation that for the actual the live presentation. This is going to be a little slide deck. It's going to describe your theater company and why it's appropriate for the grant. The things that I expect to see in your PowerPoint is your company name and logos and typographies if you want, as creative as you want to get. It should have your name, your title in the organization, a little short bio, and maybe some of your credentials. That should be one slide. Your mission, vision, and value statements, which you've worked on, the SWOT analysis, and you can flesh out that a little bit more given some of the additional information that we've covered in this course, basically to give the current state of your company. An org chart. Need state, whatever you've come up with for the need statement. It doesn't have to be the full need statement. You can do bullets for it. And then a summary of the grant application. We are applying for the X grant because we feel that it's appropriate for our mission, and fill in those details. So that's going to be a PowerPoint presentation. That's the second file we're going to have. And then the third piece of it is a live presentation. You're going to go through your slide deck to the review board, which is going to consist of me and your peers. And I'm still hoping that we can get. I'm confirming that we can get additional people to sit in on these presentations. But it will be via Google Hangouts. You should have a calendar invite for the final project presentation. I encourage you to get with each other outside of class. Well, everything is outside of class now. And practice with each other. Practice sharing your screen, going through your presentation verbally, just basically as a rehearsal. This is the process of doing an online meeting and an online presentation is a skill that obviously we need a lot of. We need a lot of development on, particularly lately. So this will be good practice for you in the future as well. And that about does it. So wrapping up, on Monday we start our final unit of the course called Expansion and Maturity, which is not about how to find out how to lose weight as you get older, but rather the activities that a theater company takes to grow their influence and the influence of the art form in general in the community. So we'll start reading Management of the Audience. That's chapter 8. Of the Rhine textbook. The milestones 11 is due then, and then we got a bunch of other stuff. Preparing for theater advocacy, and we've got another featured speaker coming up the Monday after next, and that'll be Heather Strickland, who's got some really great experience in getting governmental organizations to support the arts, which they actually do without too much effort, surprisingly. So that's about it. Have a great Easter, and I will see you on Monday.